I think I might get a notebook.
You're going to get a notebook.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, so our learning target for today says I can recognize and apply the properties of parallelograms. What, darling? What'd you say? It is. Thank you.
Do you make these worksheets?
I do.
How do you never add the spot for
Why do I what, honey?
Never put a spot for right?
I don't know.
Maybe she never thought about it.
I also just realized that I mixed up angles and sides on here.
Oh, that's fake.
That's good.
You know what we call that nowadays?
Okay, weirdo. Alright, so does anybody know what a parallelogram is? A four-sided figure. Take a point. And what is a four-sided figure called?
Quadrilateral.
Quadrilateral. Alright, so a parallelogram is a quadrilateral with two pairs of parallel sides. Man, I wish I had caught that mistake before we glued this down. Alright, so what we're going to do today is we're going to learn about the properties of parallelograms. It's going to be super fun after we fix some parts of our notes. This should be sides instead of angles. And it was so pretty. This one, this third one right here, is part of angles. I spent all this time making it, and I got it backwards.
Be careful about what we use.
Yeah, and these two should be switched. So the second section should be angles. The first section should be sides. And this angle should have 3 boxes instead of 2. What'd you say, Justin? Oh, okay. It was so pretty. Oh well. Better luck next time, Tater. Alright, are we ready? Have everybody fixed it? We're good. Ainsley's going to stop talking over there. Alright, so when you have a parallelogram, you can look at it 3 different ways. You can look at the sides, you can look at the angles, or you can look at the diagonals. If you look at the sides, one rule is it's pairs of opposite sides are parallel. So remember, for us to mark that things are parallel, we use little arrows. So those are parallel, and these two are parallel. Boom, that's parallelogram. And then it says that its pairs of opposite sides are what? And what do we use to mark congruent? Little tickies. So we put 1 ticky there, and we put 2 tickies there, and boom, that's how you know that the sides are congruent.
You're giving out knowledge here. Need some respect. Just saying. What's up, dude?
Any questions? Alright, then you can look at the angles. So on the angles it says it's pairs of opposite angles are congruent. So what would be, first question, what do we use to mark the angles are congruent?
Little rainbow.
Little rainbows, okay. And what would be opposite of this guy? Bottom right? So we put one rainbow there. And we have to show that the others are congruent, so would we use one rainbow here or two rainbows? Two rainbows. Take a point, children. Alright, who remembers what it means for angles to be supplementary?
I know it's a 90 degree.
They equal to be 180, I want to say.
They add up to be 180. Take a point.
Dang, Cameron.
And what does it mean for it to be consecutive?
Oh, yeah, you got it.
Oh, I don't know about that one.
When this, it's ready. It's, crap, I know it is.
What tower thing?
Gryffindor. Consecutive means next to each other. So, like, if this was 60, this is a consecutive angle. So what would the measure of... No, guys. Because consecutive angles are supplementary. Opposite angles are congruent. So it would be 120. Good. Take a point. So what would this top right angle be?
180, I mean 60.
That would be 60. And then this one would be 120.
I instantly regret that.
Blair,
Messed up again?
I'm telling you, Tater. In my defense, I did borrow this from someone and just made it prettier.
That's
So, yeah. But it's okay.
Hey, Cameron.
I tried to polish it, Terry.
Alright, so this one should say, if there is one right angle they are all right angles. It's good to have you back, Drake. Alright, so what that means is if this is 90, then this has to be 90 because 1, they're supplementary and they add up to be 180, and 2, it says if 1 is a right angle, then all of them are right angles. And remember, for it to be a right angle, we put a little box. Ta-da!
I do not see the
Well, we're pretending.
Oh, my fault.
Use your imagination.
Figures are not drawn to scale. How about
What are
that?
you looking at?
Rectangle is so...
Stop it. Stop it.
This is a square.
Hey, just gonna leave your thing running.
I'm just going to get my water.
I thought you were going back there. Hey, Cameron.
I'm waiting for it.
Cameron, I would like to formally apologize if Jared's car wouldn't have stopped yesterday.
What's today's?
Because I would have ruined your car.
Today's the 10th.
Bruh, I was like, dude, stop. And you're like, it's not working.
Okay, great story. Thanks for interrupting class. Now, let's talk about diagonals.
We had time. You had to go get water.
The diagonals say, ham sandwich. The diagonals don't say anything because they can't talk. They're on a piece of paper. But they do bisect each other. And what does bisect mean? Cuts it in half. So, what are diagonals? What does that mean?
Going that way, not that way, or that way.
It is
So, like, from top left to where?
bottom right.
Bottom right. There we go, taters.
Let's make an arrow.
Who need it? I got it.
And then from bottom left to top right. And if they bisect each other, that means it cuts it in what? So that means that this half would be congruent to down here, right? So we put a ticky. And what would this be congruent to? The top. Alright, weirdo. So if this was 5, what would this one down here be?
5,
And if this was 7, what would this one over here be?
7.
They do. The diagonals form 2 congruent triangles. So if we drew one diagonal like this, that means that this top triangle would be congruent to this bottom triangle.
What do you spell? I'm writing it.
The congruent symbol.
Oh.
Whose phone is this?
Told you.
Bro, you had to put me on blast like that. Yes, Mark. Zachary, you're gonna judge me a lot today. I don't appreciate that.
She's still judging.
I don't like you. That doesn't make sense.
That
Yeah, I
does.
know it's.
Good try, then. Alright, let's look at the back. Now we're going to practice. We're going to apply these and we're going to put it to use. Are we ready?
The fifth visual. That's what he said. There we go.
I finally got it.
Alright, so it says to find the following.
AB equals BC.
AB is going to be congruent to what? So what's the measure of it? 10?
So I didn't want to. I didn't know exactly the measure. My bad.
It gives you the measure in there. Alright, and BC is going to be congruent to what? So what's the measure of it going to be? Fantastic.
Find the
Have to write
following.
the other line.
Hmm?
You don't have to write the other line thing.
No, we're finding the measure of it.
Equals C equals.
Do number 2 without me.
So, oh, what is it? Oh, I know it. I think I got it.
Alright, what's angle C? 110. What's angle B?
70.
And what's angle D?
70.
If you got it right, take a point. If 3 people at your table got it right, take 2 points.
Don't be generous with that thing.
Travis.
Go home.
Go behind my 2 days, so I have to be here.
What do you say?
Ditto.
What is it?
Alright, now let's look at number 3.
Oh, great.
We're going to apply this to algebra. It says to find the following. So how would we find W? What do we know about opposite sides of a parallelogram? They're congruent. They're equal. So we would set them equal. Take a point. Good job. So we would do 4W plus 8 equals 5W plus 1. It's 4W plus 8.
I know, I was already solving it.
Oh, okay.
W equals 7.
W equals 7. Alright, so how would we find DC from there? Are y'all paying attention?
Yes, ma'am.
Because we're having a
I
lesson.
still broke my chain.
Okay.
So,
Yes, tell me.
Okay, so take 7 and multiply it by 4 and then add 8.
Okay, what'd you get?
How do you do that? Like, I don't know how you do it.
36.
Okay.
Hold on, I got it.
36.
Dang.
36. Now, could we assume that EF is also 36, or should we plug it in just to check and make sure we did our math right?
Pretty sure it's 36.
Let's plug it in to make sure. Alright, so what's 5 times 7? And what's 35 plus 1? Look at us go.
You have to solve for
We do have to solve for Z. Now, what do we know about angle E and angle F? What type of angles are they? They're consecutive, so that means that they are...
Equal.
No. They add up to equal 180. They're supplementary. Good. Both of you take a point. So that means we're going to do 9Z minus 12 plus 3Z, and we're going to set it equal to 180. All right, 9Z plus 3Z is 12Z. I'm sorry, are you not entertained?
I'm there.
it is what it is. Can't please everyone.
16 equals Z. Z equals what?
I got 16.
Yeah.
Did we get 16 or 14?
I got 16.
16. Alright, so now that we have 16, what are we going to do?
Plug it in.
Plug it in. Plug it in and find angle E and angle F for me.
E is 132.
Wait. Give everybody a chance.
Gosh.
They're not as fast as you. You're a ninja. Yes, ma'am.
You can't be in
Oh,
it if you have to go to
just wait.
class for 2 years. Salty.
I'm sorry, what are you salty over?
I said you can't be a ninja if you hadn't taken this course for 2 years.
Okay.
You're a ninja in training, son.
Trying to get points.
Okay. Logan, tell me E.
Is 132.
132. Take a point. Ainsley, tell me F.
Oh, F is 48.
Good. Take a point. Did everybody get that? If everybody at your table got it right, take a point.
I can't see.
Oh, guys,
I am so
sorry.
yes. Yes.
Are we ready to do number 4?
Dude, look, every time I say something, I look at you like that. I don't. It makes me uncomfortable. You know, I never realized.
Alright. So this one says to solve for x. It tells us that NV, which is this thing down here, is 16. But then it tells us that the whole thing is 2x plus 8. So if this is 16, what do we know this top part is?
16.
It's also 16. So what would make the whole length of TV be? Where'd you get that from? Good, take a point. So what would we do with 32 now that we know that TV is equal to 32? Good, take a point. We would do 2x plus 8 equals 32. Alright, solve that.
There's a lot of people.
Actually, this 12.
I win. I I'm pretty new at Chef, so technically.
I was giving everybody else a chance.
I just thought about something. I'm only gonna have you for 1 year. You can at least pretend to be disappointed. With a little bit more to it. Like, that snap was weak, right? You're like, wow. Wow, wow. Dang it, Kendra.
Cameron, I'm pretty sure she misses Jeremiah more than she
Did
misses
y'all
you.
get? Oh, I do miss Jeremiah.
I missed Jeremiah.
He texted me yesterday.
Did y'all get x equals 12?
Yeah.
Woo! Alright, let's look at number 5. What do you think we should do first with number 5? We should graph it, right?
Yes.
And isn't our notebook on graph paper? Isn't that handy?
I mean,
No, dude, my handy dandy. I have both.
We're gonna do that on the next page.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we left it blank.
Mm-hmm. Alright, so my next page is going to be 37C.
37C.
C. Alright, so we need to draw a coordinate plane. Alright, and what do you think we're going to do with our points? We're going to plot them.
It's going to come out to be a point.
So the problem says, determine the coordinates of the intersection of the diagonals of a parallelogram. What do we know about the diagonals of a parallelogram? So what does that mean? They cut it in half, which is known as the what?
The midpoint.
The midpoint. Take a point. And didn't we learn midpoint formula a long, long time ago?
I don't remember it.
We did.
I remember learning it, I just don't remember it.
Don't draw these. I'm just doing this to show you that we can't just guess. Okay? Because what if my drawing is off? Right? So what you do is we're going to find the midpoint of FH. And the coordinates for F were -2, 4. And the coordinates for H were 2, -3. Now, in case your memory bank has forgotten what the midpoint formula is, I'm going to help you. It's x1 plus x2 divided by 2, and y1 plus y2 divided by 2. Now, do you think we should find the midpoint of both of them? Just to make sure that they're the same? Make sure we didn't do anything crazy?
Oh, I remember this.
Alright, so we're going to start by finding the midpoint of FH. Now, who can tell me, what is our x1? -2. Plus what?
2, so 0.
Divided by what?
2, so 0.
Mm-hmm. Alright, and what is our y1?
4.
4. Plus, what's our y2?
-3.
-3 divided by 2. Alright, -2 plus 2 is 0. 0 divided by 2 is 0. What's 4 plus a -3?
1.
And 1 divided by 2 is 1/2. Can you do the same thing for GJ now? JG, which... That other one. And that's -3, -4, in case you can't read my scribble. So use the midpoint formula, and then use your points for JG.
Get that bronchitis cough.
It's not as bad as it was. It like hurt my entire back.
I used to get like respiratory infections like every year, so like I sound like a camel.
Mm. Did y'all do it as JG or GJ?
That is JG.
Did y'all get 0, 1/2? Look at us go. Do we feel like we accomplished something? And your only homework that you have tonight is to watch the video from 6.1 part 2. So why don't you get out your phones and your headphones and do that right now?
That's the first. That's such a first.
I don't have a phone for it.
Then turn it down real
I
low.
would have changed it, but I feel weird going home with no bathroom.
Would you like me to assign you something?
No. I said I don't
No.
like it.
Thank you.
Damn, did Jared tell you what happened?
But what we're going to do is we're not going to talk across the classroom, you two. And you're going to watch your video on 6.1 part 2.